6 Horsa gliders descend silently across the French countryside. They carry 181 men from D Company of the Oxford and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry. The lead glider's call sign is Chalk 91, and it contains the mission's commanding officer, Major John Howard. Howard's orders are simple: capture the bridges over the Caen Canal and Orne River and hold them until relieved. The bridges, codenamed Pegasus and Horsa, will be essential if D-Day is to succeed. The British will need the bridges to advance east from Sword Beach to link up with the 6th Airborne, who will be dropping east of the Orne River. The Germans, on the other hand, will want to use the bridges to move their armoured reserves to Normandy as quickly as possible. At 16 minutes past midnight, Chalk 91 smashes into a field next to the Caen Canal before coming to a rest just yards from Pegasus Bridge. The remaining gliders land at 1-minute intervals, with one of the gliders suffering navigational issues and landing at a different bridge some 7 miles away. As the second glider lands, Lance Corporal Fred Greenhalgh is thrown from the aircraft into a lake where he tragically drowns. He's the first soldier to die on D-Day. On Pegasus Bridge, 18-year-old Private Helmut Romer is the first German soldier to encounter the enemy on the ground. He sees a dozen paratroopers with warlike faces sprinting towards him. Romer manages to fire a warning flare before running away. He hides in a bush for the next 36 hours before surrendering. As the paratroopers cross the bridge, Lieutenant Den Brotheridge is fatally shot. He becomes the first Allied soldier to be killed from enemy fire on D-Day. Less than 10 minutes after the attack began, Howard's men transmit the code words "Ham" and "Jam." This signals they've captured both Pegasus and Horsa bridges. The men now begin to prepare for the inevitable counterattack. Whilst D Company have been capturing the bridges, Pathfinders have jumped east of the River Orne to mark drop zones N, V and K. These drop zones will be used by paratroopers of the 6th Airborne Division to reinforce John Howard's men. At approximately 1:45 in the morning, Corporal Emile Boutard, serving with 3 Squadron SAS, lands by parachute close to a German position. In the resulting firefight, he becomes the first French serviceman to be killed on D-Day. Shortly afterwards, the 101st Airborne Division begin to drop paratroopers on drop zones A, C and D. Poor weather, heavy anti-aircraft fire and a lack of signal from Pathfinder units affect the accuracy of the drops, and the 101st find themselves scattered across Normandy. Back on the eastern flank of the invasion, the 6th Airborne Division jump on drop zones N, V, K and W. Shortly afterwards, Brigadier Nigel Poet arrives at Pegasus Bridge with the first reinforcements. At the same time, Major Schmidt, commanding the units defending the bridges, arrives to investigate the shooting. His half-track speeds past the British outer perimeter and the men open fire. The half-track is forced off the road, injuring Major Schmidt, who immediately demands his British captors shoot him because he's let his Führer down. It's about this time that German Kriegsmarine radar picks up the first traces of the Allied naval armada in the English Channel. By 20:02 in the morning, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Pine Coffin has arrived with reinforcements from the 7th Parachute Battalion. He positions his 200 men to defend the area and moves Howard's troops into reserve between the 2 bridges. General Eric Marks, commanding the 84th Army Corps in Normandy, is informed of enemy paratroopers at Sainte-Mère-Église and Sainte-Marie-de-Mont. D-Day just happens to be General Marks' birthday. At 1:50 am, the Naval West Group Chief of Operations sends a signal to Berlin stating, "Report to the Office of the Führer that this is the invasion." Immediately afterwards, the 82nd Airborne Division begin to jump on drop zones N, O and T. Their drop is more accurate than that of the 101st, but many paratroopers still find themselves miles from their objectives. Back in England, bombers of the 8th Air Force take off to attack targets on the Normandy beaches and further inland. On D-Day, they'll fly a total of 2,300 sorties. At the Berghof, Hitler's been up late watching newsreels with Joseph Goebbels. He finally retires to bed at around 2 am. German intelligence are already aware of the invasion, but there's significant confusion as to its size and location, and so the decision is taken not to inform the Führer. At Ranville, the 6th Airborne Division are engaged with German forces attempting to recapture Pegasus and Horsa bridges. Sergeant Thornton disables the lead panzer tank using the unit's one and only Piat anti-tank gun. The explosion ignites the tank's fuel and ammunition, causing a massive fireball, and the remaining panzers beat a hasty retreat. At 2:40 am, Field Marshal von Rundstedt requests permission to deploy the armoured reserves. This can't be done without Hitler's personal permission, but unfortunately Hitler's asleep, and he won't wake up for another 7 hours. Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway of the 9th Parachute Battalion has assembled just 150 of the 600 men under his command. He has orders to destroy the Merville gun battery, which poses a significant threat to the landings shortly to begin at Sword Beach. Otway decides the mission is too important to wait for the rest of the men, and he moves out towards his objective. Just after 3:30, gliders bring reinforcements to both flanks of the invasion area. In the east, 55 Horsa gliders land at Ranville to support John Howard and the men holding Pegasus Bridge. On the western flank, 52 Waco gliders carry troops of the American 82nd Airborne Division. One of these gliders is carrying Brigadier General Don Pratt. General Pratt becomes the highest ranking officer to be killed on D-Day when his Waco glider skids out of control on landing. The event is referenced in the film Saving Private Ryan during the famous foobar scene.
Yeah, look at the foobar in the German dictionary, there's no foobar in there.
Private John Steele of the 82nd Airborne Division lands on the church at Sainte-Mère-Église. His parachute snags on the church spire and he hangs there for 2 hours before he's cut down by a German soldier. A few days after D-Day, John Steele escaped from the Germans and successfully returned to Allied lines. At 4:30, Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway launches his assault on the Merville battery. He has just 25% of the men he's supposed to, but fortunately most of the German garrison were asleep when the attack began. Combined with the element of surprise, it takes just 15 minutes before Otway fires a yellow rocket to show he has control of the battery. At 5 am, the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel Edward Krauss, take the town of Sainte-Mère-Église. They raise the Stars and Stripes over the town hall, marking it as the first town to be liberated on D-Day. 3 German gunboats are racing across the Caen Canal away from the port town of Eastreham. They're intercepted at Pegasus Bridge by John Howard's men, who destroy the first boat, disable the second, and force the third to flee back to the north. By 5:30 am, all ships carrying seaborne invasion troops are now anchored in position and are transferring troops into landing craft. For many paratroopers, the rest of the night is spent trying to reunite with their units. Small skirmishes break out all across Normandy as individuals, small groups, squads, platoons and companies move towards their objectives. This adds to the confusion at the German high command level, where they're still attempting to piece together exactly what's happening and where. At 5:58 in the morning, the sun rises and the seaborne invasion begins.